All right, now that you have mastered the generic interval or the numeric interval, we're going to learn about what the intervals are called as they fall within the major scale. These are called diatonic intervals. What that means is if we're thinking about the bottom note of our interval as being the tonic or the scale degree 1, the keynote, the top note is a note that would fall within that scale. So here I have all the intervals written out. The bottom note is C, and you'll notice all the top notes have no sharps or no flats on them because hopefully we remember that the key of C has no sharps or no flats. So again, if we think of the bottom note as being kind of like our tonic or our key, the top note of the interval, when it falls within that scale of whatever that bottom note is, these are what the names are going to be. All right, so we already said that a C to a C is an interval of a 1, and we're going to call that a P1. P means perfect. Now that's just a musical term. It doesn't mean that it is perfect, it's 100%, it's the best thing ever. It means it has to do with the tone series and pitch. We're not going to learn the ins and outs of why that is, but we're just going to call that one perfect. The other ones that you'll need to memorize that are perfect are the octave. So we have perfect unison. We have a perfect octave. It's always called perfect when it falls within the scale. The other two that are perfect are our fourth and our fifth. So we're calling those P4 and P5. So that's just a memorization thing. Memorize that within the major scale, 1s, 4, 5, 8, or octave are our perfect intervals. All the rest that are left, which would be seconds, I'm just going to write the generic above, thirds, so there's our fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, that was our octave, okay? All the rest, seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths, those are going to be called major. It's a major scale. If you think about from C, the top note represents the scale. So this one's going to be a major second, major third, a major sixth, and a major seventh. Make sure when you do your homework that I can tell that that's a capital M, and start working on that now, because later on we're going to have minors and we're going to learn them other ones, so we're going to need to make sure that I can read your capital M's versus lowercase m's. So it needs to be uppercase, and mine really, I guess I can make that a little bit better there. But anyway, memorize now that seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths within the major scale are major. Unison, fourths, fifths, octaves are perfect, okay? Once you understand this and kind of commit that to your brain, you can go ahead and start on your second worksheet, which is your homework, because that's all that you're doing pretty much is you're identifying those intervals by whether they're perfect or whether they're major. But this example right here is a real easy one because in the key of C, there are no sharps or no flats. We need to know how to build major and perfect intervals when that bottom note is not C as well. So let's do some of that, and I'm going to show you some methods to figure that out. So let me erase this. And let me just give you an example right here of, I'm going to go ahead and just start us off with our bottom note. And I am going to ask you to help me build a perfect fourth. Now, I didn't just say a fourth. If I had just said a fourth, that would be the generic, which all we would need to do is count 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'd really be done. When it says perfect or when it says major, you've got to make sure that that top note is a note that would fall within the scale of F. Now, if you are one of those people who have posted and mentioned that you've memorized your key signatures, you might already know what that top note should be. But if you don't, we need to figure it out. So the first step is what I already did. The first step is to just put the generic up there, because no matter what, that perfect fourth, it's going to be a B something. It's either going to be a B flat, a B natural. Some of you might even think it's going to be a B sharp. Although if you remember when we learned about keys and scales, the key of F is not one of the keys that has sharps in it. Remember the trick I told you about? And you might remember that F was that anomaly that I told you just to memorize. But if you forgot, let's figure it out. The easiest way is to think back to chapter, I think it was before when we built major scales. Before we even learned about key signatures, even though I know some of you knew them already, but when we learned scale building, what was the sentence we learned for building a scale for major? Remember, we learned a bunch of minors, but we're going back to major. It was, we walked home when we walked home. So if we write that out, we walked home when we walked home. This is basically giving you all the intervals of the scale. This would be scale degree 1, which would be your unison. The second degree of the scale is going to be your major second. The third degree of the scale is going to be your major third. The fourth is your what? Perfect fourth. The fifth is your perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and then your perfect octave. So to find that perfect fourth, all that we have to do is use this scale pattern up until the 4 and then stop, because when you get to the 4, you've gotten that fourth scale degree. So from F, if you go up whole, half, it's going to tell you what that top note needs to be. So let's go ahead and do it. So if we start on F and we go up whole, half, we end up on that key right there. Now, I am either on B flat, but some of you, if you're doing this, you might be like, well, how do I know it's not A sharp? Well, if you've already drawn the generic up there, A sharp's not even an option for you. But let's just think about it. It either is going to be a B flat or it's going to be an A sharp. If it were an F to an A sharp, it's no longer a fourth. It's actually a third. It's a different kind of a third than we've learned yet. So again, make sure you write the generic or that whatever the numeric interval is first. Then if you're figuring out your half and whole steps, you're not ever going to have a question about whether it's which enharmonic tone it is. Now, it sounds the same. F to B flat and F to A sharp. I'm playing the same notes on the piano or singing the same notes, but notation-wise and the name is different. It's kind of like potato, okay? It's the same thing, we just call it something different. So anyway, and in a different scale, this is really a different function. The fourth is going to function different than a third, so it's not really the same thing. Okay, so that's how we're going to figure out that perfect fourth from F. Now let's do some more examples together, just because it's fun. Let's go from E, and we need to go up a major third. If we go up a major third from E, remember the first step is to just put in your generic third. And you know what? There's a chance that could be it. You might be done, because we don't know. I mean, I do know, but you might not know. It's going to be a G something. It's either going to be G flat, G natural, or G sharp. You pretty much have 3 options. But if you remember the key of E, because that's an E on the bottom, that's not one of the keys that we learned that has flats in it. We learned that all the keys that have flats in it have a flatted tonic, so like E flat would have flats in it, or F, that anomaly that we just talked about. So we know, if you remember that, you know that there's really only 2 options. You have a 50-50 chance. It's either a plain old G or it's a G sharp that falls within the scale of E. So let's just figure it out from here. And remember, if we're going up a major third, we're just going to stop right there at the 3. So we go whole step from E. So let's do it real quick together, starting on E. Now remember, when you go up a whole step from E, E and F are 2 white keys. So when you go up a whole step, you're on F sharp. Then when you go up another whole step, you're on G sharp. Again, it's not A flat because we've already drawn it up here. We know that it has to be G sharp for my major third. The alternate way to do this that I meant to tell you when we did the F one is to think about your key signatures. So those of you that have your keys memorized, before you even have to worry about this, if you already know that in the key of E, there's an F, C, G, and D sharp, all you have to do is look at that top note. Well, wait, the key of E has F, C, G, D sharp, so I need to put a sharp on that on that G. You can also refer to your circle of fifths or draw out your circle of fifths, since we learned how to draw it out. So you can just think about drawing out your circle of fifths and think, okay, in the key of E, what's sharp? Is that top note sharp? And yes, it is. So in a major third, it's going to have a sharp on it. So there's 2 different ways. Key signatures, if you're really quick with those, if you don't want to even think about key signatures, if you think that's a thing of the past, although it'll come back, go and refer back to your whole and half step pattern. It's a tried and true, easy method, just counting those half and whole steps. Just make sure that you're real clear with how to figure out your half and whole steps. Let's do a couple more. All right, let's do from A flat, and we're gonna build a perfect fifth from A flat. First step, what are we gonna do? And you might wanna even do these with me. Get a piece of staff paper out or draw 5 crazy lines on a piece of paper. Draw your generic fifth. So pause it if you don't have any and do it with me. Pause, unpause. All right, perfect fifth. So if we go up a perfect fifth, if you know your key of A flat, remember that's one method to do it. You can think, what's in the key of A flat? And remember the trick for flats, okay, if you take the order of flats and if you go B, E, if you go to the key that you need and just add one more flat after it, B, E, A, and D flat, you know that the key of A flat, that's what it has in it. Because remember, the trick was that this, no, it's ugly. The second to last flat is your key. So if you kind of take that trick in reverse, you can just think about the order of flats, B, E, A, add that flat that comes after it, and that tells you what the flats are in A flat if you want to do it by memory. If that's confusing, just ignore me right now. It's okay. Let's go back here and let's think about this again. So again, if you know your key of A flat, think about what's in it. If you know that E, if you know what it is, go ahead and put it on there. If not, let's do it this way right here. Okay, so to go up to a perfect fifth, we're going to go whole, whole, half, whole. So let's do it together. So from A flat, we go whole, whole, I'm on C, so I'm going to go back to this C, half, whole. Had to remember where I was. Okay, so we're on E flat. So a perfect fifth up from A flat is going to have an E flat on there. And again, if you knew your key of A flat, you could just pop that up there real quick. So those are the two ways to do it. Let's do one more together since I know you paused it and got that piece of staff paper. Let's do the key of G, or not the key, but the starting note of G. And we're going to build a major seventh. So this is a biggie. And now on the big ones, you need to make sure to count, if you're going to do it the half step way, make sure to count your half steps really accurately. Maybe even do it more than once because it's real easy to miss a half step in there, especially when you have a whole lot to count. So a major seventh from G, let's go ahead and put the generic in first. So go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm waiting. Hopefully you did. Or are you just looking at me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So put your seventh up there. Now, if you know what's in the key of G off the top of your head, or if you think about your circle of fifths or refer to your circle of fifths, you can think, well, does that F have any accidental on there, meaning a flat or a sharp? If you know what it has on there, or if it has anything on there, go ahead and stick it up there. If not, let's go ahead and think about our whole and half step pattern. Now, a seventh is way up here. So you've got to go whole, whole, half, whole, whole, whole. Okay, it might be hard to do it on this because it's a little keyboard here, but let's see if I can do it and not mess up. So from G, we go up whole, whole, half. Now I'm over here. Now it's whole, whole, and one more whole. Now here we have to go half, and then that's my whole. Because remember, that's 2 white keys. So when I'm here on this E and I go up my last whole step, it takes me up to that black key right there. So what note am I on? I'm on F sharp. Remember, sharp to the black key to the right, the flat one would be the one to the left. So this major seventh is going to have an F sharp on there. Now, I showed you the shortcut way to do your flats, and I'm going to show you also the shortcut way, kind of like using the trick in reverse for sharps. It's kind of confusing, but just listen and maybe it'll click, and if not, it's really not a required piece of information at all. It's just something that can help some of you perhaps. So we already wrote down the order of flats, which was B, E, A, D, G, C, F. The order of sharps is just that same thing but in reverse. Remember, flying clowns get drunk at every bar. Okay, now remember the shortcut for figuring out keys once the key signature was already there was looking at the last sharp to the right and going up a half step. Okay, so what we're doing now though, I'm already telling you basically what key kind of we're looking at since we're thinking about the bottom note as your key. So we're already on the key, so we're actually going to be counting down to find out what the last sharp is. So the last sharp in the key signature of the key you're looking for is basically a half step before that key. Rewind and listen to that like a couple more times because I know that can be kind of confusing. So anyway, if we're looking for the key of D, the last sharp in the key signature is going to be the letter that comes a half step before it. It's going to be C sharp. So if you're looking for the key of D, you put in an F sharp and a C sharp because C sharp comes before D. Remember, these are the order of sharps, so these all are sharped notes, or these are the sharps in the key signature. Okay, let's do another one. So look, that's the key of G, basically. If you're thinking about the key of G, you're going to add in all the sharps until the letter that comes before G. What letter comes before G? A, B, C, D, E, F. Hey, that's the first one. That's the only one we have to put in there because F sharp comes before G. So the key of G only has an F sharp in it. How about if A were my bottom note of my interval and I were trying to figure out what was sharp or flat in the key of A? Well, actually, it's only sharps. Hopefully you'll remember that. But anyway, what letter comes before A in the alphabet? A, B, well, okay, in the musical alphabet that is G sharp. So you add all the sharps in, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp. And that's what would be in the key signature of A. Hopefully that's clear. If not, it's okay. But anyway, when you're trying to figure out your keys, that's a shortcut way to think about your key signature. The other way is just to use the whole and half step pattern, okay? So just remember, use this whole and half step pattern, write it down. There's also a chart in your book that gives you the half steps for each scaled interval. So go ahead now and proceed to worksheet 3.